I claim the Salt Throne!
Hello, Mogulis, everybody. This is Don Willie, back again for another edition of Ice and Fire Opinions. And as promised, I am continuing my review, my recap of Fire and Blood Volume 1, starting with Aegon's Conquest. And I actually took some notes this time around. I don't normally do notes, but I decided to take notes. And yeah, hopefully everybody is hearing me well in the chat right now. If you were out there. Shout out to Big E and also Sam R09. Sam, I haven't seen you in a long time. How are you? And I also hope that everyone had a beautiful holiday with their families if you are a celebrator of holidays. And what's going on, Sonny Frank? All right. And let's just jump into this. Oh, and also shout out to Jake Cruz. So, yeah, man. Aegon's Conquest. This was an interesting part of the book, because it's kind of broken up into Aegon's Conquest, and then it goes into the Reign of Aegon. So next time I'll talk about the Reign of Aegon, but this time I want to talk about Aegon's Conquest. So it starts off in the book. Oh, and spoilers. But come on, you already knew that. All right, so it starts off where it talks about the flight of Aegon Targaryen and his family from Valyria, 12 years before the Doom. But it does, it starts off with a little preamble of how everyone, the Maesters kind of date everything as AC, which is after the conquest, and BC, before the conquest. So the Doom of Valyria took place somewhere about 200 years before the conquest. I don't remember the exact number. I probably should have taken notes on that one, but it's not necessarily important, only because it's not talking about the Targaryen history before Aegon's conquest in a large way. So it talks about Aegon Targaryen and his daughter Daenerys the Dreamer having a dream about the Doom of Valyria, and Aegon deciding to take all of his holdings and all of his wives. He said he had wives, not a wife, but wives, slaves, and whoever else. And they were like, okay, bouncing out of here, we're going to Dragonstone. And Dragonstone was actually a Valyrian stronghold. That was part of the Valyrian Empire. It wasn't part of the realms of Westeros, even though it is what would be considered across the narrow sea from Essos, and it is much closer to Westeros than it is to Essos. So, a couple of interesting things here, and this is a thought that I had. I'm like, because it said there, 20 rival families. So, around 20 rival families that were the Dragon Lords of Old Valyria. Now, the thing that kind of got me about this was the way that things had been explained before. It didn't necessarily, it wasn't concrete about how the thing with the Dragon Lords worked out. But here we get the understanding that definitely there was a hierarchy, and the noble families were the Dragon Lords, and then you got other Valyrians who were not Dragon Lords, and it breaks it down when it gets to Celtigars and also the Valyrians of Driftmark. And so those are two other Valyrian families but they were not part of the upper echelon Dragon Lord class. Alright, so after the Doom of Valyria, the Targaryens were the last Dragon Lord family, period, point blank. No other Dragon Lord family survived the Doom of Valyria, which, like, okay, interesting. You know, now the thing I'm wondering, because remember, this book is meant to be history from a certain point of view. In terms of it's meant to be kind of partially factual, partially fanciful, a little bit, right? So while, yeah, I'm pretty sure that Daenerys the Dreamer had a dream about the Doom of Valyria, I have a very hard time believing that Aegon just was like, oh, well, hey, you know what? My daughter had this crazy dream that Valyria is gonna blow up, and so we're moving. Now, I'm pretty sure we'll never get an answer to that unless we get something about how the Doom of Valyria actually happened. And wouldn't it be crazy if the Targaryens somehow caused the Doom of Valyria? Because they're literally the last family. They leave before the Doom of Valyria, and it seems like a very convenient story that Daenerys had a dream about the Doom of Valyria, and then all of a sudden, you know, not too long after, boom, and only the Targaryens were saved. So, I want you to think about it. And while you guys are thinking, I want to give a shout out to Kat and also Renee of House Stark. Loyal banners all the way. All right. So before Aegon Targaryen became the Lord of Dragonstone, there were, between him and Aegon, there were 9 other lords before he became the Lord of Dragonstone. And his father was named Aegon Targaryen. Now, you might remember the name from you might remember the name Egg's older brother, Aerion Brightflame, who was an asshole for the ages. So shout out to Westeros Ninja. What's going on? So Aerion was the Lord of Dragonstone before Aegon, and it's the one thing that this story has me thinking about. Whatever reason, this is something I have not been able to shake because there isn't a particular explanation for this, and until I am able to actually talk to George face to face and ask him this direct question, no middleman or anything like that, I don't think I'll ever get a full answer. That is, where did Oris Baratheon come? And I say this because every Valyrian that we know of supposedly has purple eyes, silver gold hair. We have never heard of any Valyrian that does not have those features. And yet Oris Baratheon, who was supposed to be Aegon's bastard half-brother, has black hair and possibly blue eyes. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the whole Baratheon thing later on when I get into the actual war of Conquest. But it just kind of, struck me as this is a little odd. This is especially because genetics have been a big thing throughout the story, and how people look, etc., etc. So it's like, how in the world does Oris Baratheon have this, you know, strong non Valyrian features with black hair and blue eyes, and then also if he's a bastard, where does the name Baratheon come? Also, questions I would like to ask George, which I may never ever get answered. Um. Okay, so moving right along. So, at some point, Aegon has gone to Westeros before, because he had the painted table commissioned, and they have the warring kingdoms. The two biggest warring kingdoms were the Stormlands and the river and islands. Rivers and Iron Islands. With Argilac the Arrogant for the Stormlands, and uh, damn, the hell, Harren the Black. Like, how in the world could I even forget that name for so Harren and Argilac are going back and forth, and Argilac is like, "Look, I'm tired of this dude chipping away and seizing lands from my kingdom." So he decides to hit up Aegon and is like, "Hey, look, I'm gonna make you a king in Westeros. You help me to fight off, to not even fight off, but to kind of hold at bay Harren the Black, and I'm gonna give you certain lands, along the Trident River." And Aegon is no fool. He knows, like, hey, whoa, you're giving me lands that technically don't belong to you currently. Like, those lands were lost by your grandfather. So how in the world are you talking about giving me this land? But okay, we'll do that. Look, you give me that land that you talked about, a couple other lands, cool. It's like, all right, well, all right, as part of the deal, I would like for you to marry my daughter, Argella. Aegon's like, look, I got two wives already. Not really digging the whole messing around outside of the family thing. We keep it all in the family here. But I got my boy, my best friend, Oris Baratheon, and Argilac takes this as an insult. He's like, "Yo, whoa, 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 dude, no, no. It's my daughter. I'm a king. She's a princess. She would be queen of the Stormlands, and you want her to marry a bastard? No, not gonna happen." And so Aegon takes counsel, decides, okay, you know what? Instead of helping fight off, fight this war between Harren the Black and Argilac Dorndyne, he's like, yo, I'm just gonna take the whole shit over. I'm going to take the whole damn thing over, and I'm gonna be the king myself. Uh, and so that really is what begins Aegon's conquest. He actually lands kind of like, because like where we have the Crown Lands is not a kingdom unto itself. The Crown Lands was kind of pieces that were broken up from the Stormlands, the Riverlands, and the Reach, because there's kind of a point where like most of the kingdoms kind of meet up, uh, and so the what is now the Crown Lands was kind of carved out from there, and that's where you have like King's Landing. And oh, shout out to Alicia Kingston. What is happening? Lord Commander AK. My sis, what's happening? Um oh, man, oh man. So let's see here. So, it comes down on Balerion and Black Dread on, this hill, what they call Aegon's High Hill. And another interesting note, Balerion the Black Dread was the last surviving dragon to be born in Valyria. The other two dragons, Vagar and Meraxes, were basically, yeah, those two were born on Dragonstone. So yeah, you know how this whole story goes now. And this, like I said, it's supposed to be more of a recap than anything. I just thought it was kind of cool that we get the descriptions of like how there were uh all these different warring factions and all of these smaller kingdoms, and it talks about how some of these people had been kings or the family had been kings and they were forced to bend the knee to some other overlord, and that's how we get the seven kingdoms that we got. you know um uh the one thing that is kind of crazy, it hasn't really talked about finances. They haven't, because in the main series you definitely hear about gold dragons, silver stags, coppers and all that stuff. And as far as I can remember, there's not really any mention of money at all. But it is what it is. Oh, shout out to Lauren's Corner. What's going on? Um, all right. So let's see here. What else we got here? All right. So I could have sworn I had taken more notes than this, but apparently not. Apparently I had not. It's all good though. So look, you have the wars and some of the stuff that happens in the conquest with regards to battle strategies by some of these people. Or I mean, I understand George had a way that he wanted to illustrate it, uh, but some of the stuff is just absolutely baffling. So the Field of Fire, everyone knows about the Field of Fire. Probably the most famous. Uh, yeah, probably the most famous battle in Aegon's Conquest, Field of Fire, right? So you have Murin. Not exactly sure how to pronounce his name, but the last Gardener King. So apparently he brought his entire family, at least all the men in his family, to this battle. I don't know why you would do that. That sounds like a horrible strategy because again, like, yeah, okay, he teamed up with Lauren Lannister, King of the Rock. They had this great big army. All right, we're gonna go and smash this would-be conqueror, who by this time he had already conquered the Stormlands. Let's see, had he already? I think he already conquered the Riverlands at this point. So now you have the Reach in the Westerlands. The North still hasn't jumped into it yet. Yeah, the North still hasn't jumped into it yet. And Dorne is Dorne, and we'll get to that a little later. But I don't understand how in the world anyone with any kind of sense could say, okay, even if you brought all these men to battle with you because you want them to be bathed in glory, you want them to see what it is for you to be a mighty conqueror. If I had seen 3 big ass dragons and there's nothing but dry field, I don't care how many thousands of knights I have. I know what a fire does. I know what a fire does when there is no water to quench it. If I was, if you're supposed to be a smart ruler and you want to keep your house afloat, you send some of your descendants back home or somewhere safe or whatever, so this way, hey, even if I die, even if my son dies, at least I have grandsons, cousins, nephews, brothers, something. Nope. Argilac shouldn't have been the one called the arrogant. It should have been Urin, whatever the hell, the damn Gardener King. He should have been called the arrogant one, because how arrogant do you have to be like, yeah, I'm bringing my whole damn family with me and we're gonna kill these dragons? Yeah, so House Gardener deserved to be extinguished for being fucking fools. No better way to say it at all. Harren the Black, I don't think Harren was a fool, but he was an old man, stubborn in his ways. He built the biggest castle. He built in stone, and he's thinking to himself, okay, look, man, I've been holding this down for years. No way nobody is doing anything to me. So yeah, that one was kind of an interesting thing with him. Wait, I'm like, I don't think he could have anticipated that one dragon would be able to burn down, I mean not burn down, but like to basically melt his castle. Like, that's some crazy shit when you have, like, I don't know if anyone has ever seen rock turn to glass, or been in the vicinity of a fire hot enough to turn solid rock into glass. I have. I probably lost about 5 pounds in water weight just being that close. That kind of fire is no joke. So imagine doing that to an entire castle. That is beyond crazy. Oh, shout out to Bernie and also John Taylor and Sir Stefan. What's going on? So man, all right. We got to talk about the Vale. Because obviously the Vale was kind of impregnable through the Bloody Gate, and again, there's this thing where I don't understand how people just don't get the fact that you gotta close off an approach to the dragon. You have to. So Visenya comes into the court at the Vale of Arryn with the damn dragons, and decides, okay, jumping in here, gets on gets inside the courtyard at the Eyrie, and Ronald Aaron is there on Visenya's lap, looking at the dragons when his mom comes out, and she did a straight mob move on her. Like, hey, got your kid here. That big dragon in the background. Know what I'm here for. Let's be nice about this. Don't want your kid to die. I don't want to have to feed your kid to the big scaly beast over there. Let's do the right thing. And young Ronald Aaron had absolutely no idea. No idea that he was about to not be king. Oh, shout out to Brandon Builder and also Cardinal Doomsday. And yeah, man, I'm definitely okay. Cardinal, I don't know why it will make you ask that question, but I'm cool. So that is probably one of the most gangster moves of all time. Is the fact that you have no words being spoken, and it's just like, mommy, can I go fly with the lady on the dragon? She's got no choice but to grant her son's wish, but at the same point, they already know, hey, I get back here, you already know what needs to be here. So Ronald Aaron's mom goes, gets her crown, his little mini crown, and then the ancient falcon crown of, for the kings of the Vale. And it's like, all right, here you go. He was probably like, all right, can you please get the fuck out of my castle? Because that's what I would have said. I'm like, all right, you and your husband reign now. Can you please get the fuck out of my castle? Right? Please. And, it's interesting now. Like, Aegon was a pretty smart dude when it came to battle strategy, because what I don't think people realize is that, as much symbolism as it was of every time he defeated someone taking their swords, to go and make the Iron Throne, there's also a very practical military application for that. That is, you have just disarmed all of these people. It is going to take months before they are able to restock on weaponry, unless they just so happen to keep, enough swords around. That's going to be a lot of time that they're going to have to spend mining for the iron ore, having the smiths go and reforge new swords for them. That's more time that they're not going to be able to rebel, because it's going to take too damn long. Because my armies, ones that stuck with me, they got all the weapons. You guys, I disarmed all of you. So the last king that we get to, after seeing everything that has happened, hearing about Field of Fire, what happened at Harrenhal, what happened in the Stormlands, etc., is King Torrhen Stark, who history shall remember as the king who knelt. Now, he had a bastard brother named Brandon Snow, who, for some odd reason, thought that he was going to be able to cross the neck and kill 3 grown dragons for Dolo. I don't know what the hell he was thinking. But he done lost his damn mind. Oh, shout out to White Privilege and also Ricky Hunt. And no, this is not Mumra. This is actually Panos, the Mad Titan. But you know what? If I can ever find a Mumra t-shirt, I will be wearing one on stream. So yeah, man. This is one of those things where, look, you had someone who was smart. Torrhen Stark decided, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna have my men die in a futile attempt. At this point, Aegon ruled 5 of the 6 kingdoms. 5. He had beaten everyone who had come before him. He had, if not the superior numbers, he had the superior weaponry. Those dragons were absolutely nothing to play with. Nothing to play with. So, why play yourself? So at this point, you know, Torrhen Stark bends the knee, becomes Lord of Winterfell, Warden of the North, and you know the rest of the story from there. So after all this, you know, you have Rhaenys. He goes to Dorne, speaks with Mariah Martell, who, according to the books, and I'm not sure how true this is in actual Westerosi history, but according to this particular book, Mariah Martell was supposed to be 80, very rotund, and also blind. And she had been a pretty long reigning monarch. She had been the princess. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't know what the hell was that. Yeah, she had been Princess of Dorne for 60 years. So since she was 20 years old, so you know, I guess she's kind of almost like the Queen Elizabeth of, you know, of this story in terms of long, you know, having a very long reign. Because I don't know, Queen Elizabeth has been queen for like 75 years or some no, not 75, but I know it's definitely been over 50, and she's like the longest serving monarch, you know, like in real world terms. Oh, shout out to my man Lenny, man, long time no see, man. You gotta holler at me if you still got my number. Hit me up, man. All right, yeah, so you know, Rhaenys goes to Dorne and is like, hey, look, join up. Everybody else is doing it. Might as well get down or lay down. And Princess Martell is like, no. That would be a no for me. Go back, tell your brother we don't want him in Dorne. We're good. Straight. Don't need this. Don't need you guys. We're done. And Rhaenys like, yo, listen. After this is all over, we're coming back. We are coming back with fire and blood. And Mariah Martell is like, yeah, well, you know, look, we are unbowed, unbent, unbroken, and that's how we shall remain, because we're Dorne, and we don't care about you and your dragons. So after all is said and done, after Aegon has conquered the other 6 kingdoms, he turns his attention to Dorne. They decide, you know, to go there and it's like, hey, they're flying around, nobody here. All right. They go from town to town, castle to castle. Nobody here. Interesting. All right. Well, I guess they all packed up and left. Goes to Sunspear, tells whatever remaining nobles, whatever remaining small folk, I am your king now, you know, and everything is straight. And in the meantime, you see any of those former lords of yours, remember, they are rebels and traitors to the realm, and you shall do them harm when you see them, etc., etc. And the Dornish people are like, okay, sure, King Aegon, yeah, we're gonna do that, yeah, sure. You're the king, Aegon. And after he takes his little victory lap, they're like, okay, is he almost out of here? He's almost out, huh? All right, yeah, shoot him with some arrows in the back. And a lot of the lords who stayed in Dorne were murdered mercilessly, and apparently, one of the lords was thrown out of a tower to his death by Mariah Martell. Now, I'm pretty sure it wasn't her personally who did it, because I can't imagine someone who is 80, in poor health and blind themselves throwing someone from a window. So it was probably had her household guards like, oh yeah, Your Grace, what would you like for me to do with this I don't know, interloper, invader? Throw him from the tower at once, Your Grace. And then just throwing the obligatory Wilhelm scream there. So yeah, that kind of set off, the Dornish Wars. And I would recommend that you guys read into the book for the Dornish Wars, because a lot of that stuff is very interesting in terms of the way that the Westerosi, the people from other parts of Westeros, kind of view the Dornish is, it's one of those things where it's like, wow, how is it that you have people who live in such a restricted area? Because Westeros is not like this huge, massive continent, but culturally, there are many things that are different about the different regions. But I think the more middle regions share more in common culturally than the two most outer regions, those being the North and Dorne. Because in the North, they still worship the old gods, and there are many times in the book where the Northerners they're called savages. Straight up and down, they are called savages. And I think there might be a passage in there where it was like the Northmen are not much better than wildlings or something like that. It was like, damn, man. And then, like I said, the Dornish are looked at as something totally different. So obviously you have the wars with the Dornish, and the very last, not the last thing that happens, but one of the last things in Aegon's conquest is the death of Rhaenys. And then there's the whole back and forth, because the death of Rhaenys, because all right, here's the thing: you have Aegon's conquest. Aegon's conquest officially is like 2 years, but the war with Dorne essentially lasted for close to 10 years. So Aegon's conquest, officially supposedly ended in like 2 AC or 1 AC or something like that. I don't know. It's a little iffy with the time, but then the war with Dorne is like another 7 years after that. So it's a little tricky as the. It's a little tricky in terms of how do you call it? It's a little tricky in like, do you really consider Aegon's conquest to be done when it says it's done, or was Aegon's conquest never officially finished? So I don't know. Oh, shout out to my brother LT, Sir LT Giles, in the building, and also shout out to Angelina Ahai. Haven't seen you in a long time either. So yeah, yeah, this is this part of the book is very interesting because it does give insight into the battle strategies. It gives insight into some of the differences in culture as far as Westeros is concerned, and how you have these different regions that are fighting to keep their culture. Against someone who is essentially a foreign invader, because it's stated that Aegon wasn't looked at as a Westerosi. And in fact, the Targaryens didn't have the three-headed dragon banner before Aegon, and it wasn't until Aegon actually came up with the three-headed dragon banner that people in Westeros started to look at him as he was one of them. So, that to me is very interesting. You have this struggle for one person to integrate into the culture at large, while others are trying to maintain their cultural identity. Because fundamentally, when you have a society that is merging in this fashion, you're going to have meldings of cultures, and sometimes you're going to have culture clashes. And there are a lot of times when people don't necessarily want that culture clash to happen. They like keeping things exactly the way they are. They don't want anything to change. And so for Aegon to come by and kind of say, okay, I'm putting everything together under one umbrella, I imagine it would have been a shock for many people. Now, I think it would be a bigger shock to the elites more than the small folk, because under the feudal system, small folk weren't really allowed to travel and get outside of the place where they were born. So for them, they wouldn't have noticed much of a difference. It would have been more of the elites who actually did travel. Because think about it, and this is another thing. I keep on coming up with things that I think about. The Maesters of the Citadel. I would love to know how is it that everyone kind of decided that they were going to allow for Maesters to be in all of the High Lords' castles, or even any nobles' castles, keeps, or whatever, because they do come from Oldtown. Oldtown was part of the Reach. The Reach was its own kingdom. So how is it that all of these nobles have, and even, I mean, think about it, right? Harren the Black had a maester. So did Aegon Targaryen. Their maesters were at their parlay before, you know, before Aegon uh, took flight and, you know, hit the flames, hit Harrenhal with the flames. So I would love to know. I mean, and obviously this is kind of off topic a little bit, but yeah, how was it that they were able to convince everyone from these different kingdoms that yeah, you should have a maester? Now I understand the whole thing about learning, but it's like, all right, well, everyone could have built their own sort of mini citadel in their respective regions. You know, like why would you not do that? So there has to be some reason why. And as I said in the previous video, there was a lot about this book that even though it is centered on the Targaryens, there's also a lot that is centered on Oldtown, and especially the Citadel and the high tower, the Citadel, the High Tower, and the Faith of the Seven. All of that stuff is kind of centered in Oldtown, and there are many many passages and just like lines in the books that in this book specifically that kind of bring things back to Oldtown. Like Aegon had a coronation at King's Landing, but that wasn't the real coronation, or that wasn't the one that people really consider. And he didn't even consider that to be his true coronation. His true coronation was when he went to Oldtown. And he consulted with the Septons before he went out and did this, and consulted with, you know, this. And so I'm wondering why this book is so Oldtown centric. I don't know. I mean, it's written by a maester, you know, Archmaester Gildane, obviously, but that still doesn't necessarily explain why so many of the events in the book are Oldtown centric. But I don't know. All right. So, anyone have any questions? In fact, I should probably post it. Got to do this last time because I do love answering your questions. But you know, let's see what's in the chat that I might have missed. And yeah, Bernie, I do agree. The Maesters are creeping around, reporting to the Citadel. And Alicia, honestly, I don't know, for some reason when I hear the name Cregan Stark, I think of like some old hillbilly. For some, just the name Cregan just to me seems like some old hillbilly name. You know, chewing tobacco, playing with like a possum or something like that. I don't know, man. Oh man. And Lauren, hey, listen, you know what? I have no problem with hanging out with the weirdos doing stuff like this around holidays, you know. Mm. Oh man. All right, so we got a couple of questions in here. All right. Let's see. So Cardinal Doomsday, why is it so Old Town centric? Maybe because George views himself as a maester. What do you say? Um. So interestingly enough, right? And I brought this up in my last video. Um. I'm wondering if George is supposed to be a character in the books because it says that written by Archmaester Gildane, here and transcribed by George R.R. Martin. So I mean, I would imagine that George does consider himself to be a maester of sorts. But I would love to know if he is actually a character in his own universe. That would be, you know, that would be very, very meta, as they say. But as to whether or not that is the reason why it's Old Town centric, I'm not exactly sure. All right, next up for Ricky Hunt, Hell Hydra. Has reading Fire and Blood changed your opinion of any? Um, let's see here. Hasn't it changed my opinion? Um, a little bit for House Targaryen, only because uh, it seemed like it seems though one okay, the women are obviously smarter than the men when it comes to uh when it comes to keeping things afloat. Now, George is a self-professed feminist, so I am not shocked that women do play a prominent role in the books. But it seems as though like when it comes to various obvious things that you should be able to pick up on just as a human being if you're thinking critically. It's like men don't do a lot of critical thinking here. Most of the critical thinking is done by the women in House Targaryen. So, uh, that's the thing that that might change in terms of the way I viewed House Targaryen. It's like, and it's not that the men were stupid. It's just that the women just thought of the obvious stuff. It's like, well, why wouldn't you do this? Why are you doing this thing over here when this is a much better option? So that was the thing that stuck out to me in terms of houses. Let's see here. All right, so Lawrence Corner asks, what number of babies should Alysanne have stopped at? Man, probably 4 or 5. I mean, but given what happened to the Targaryen families, I mean, because remember, this is supposed to be a time for modern medicine, medieval times, where people had to have uh large families because a lot of kids just didn't make it to adulthood. So that part is very understandable. But yeah, 10 kids were was it 11? No, 10. 10 kids was too damn much. Just too. She should have probably stopped at 5. And it seemed like she tried to stop, and Jaehaerys was to a certain extent on some bullshit. Like, no, you must be fruitful and multiply. It's the 7 pointed star. my lady wife. So yeah, man, he was, Harry was just kind of an asshole when it came to that. All right, Bernie asked, would you rather Visenya or Rhaenys? I mean, see, here's the thing, right? So Aegon, and Aegon was not a good guy. Let's make that clear. Aegon was not a good guy. Um, both of Visenya and Rhaenys were supposed to be beautiful, but each one was a different kind of beauty. So I would imagine that if I had to equate them with actresses that we've actually seen on the show, I'm guessing Visenya would have looked something like Lena Headey, and Rhaenys might have looked something like Natalie Dormer. So both are very beautiful, but like one just looks like she's ready to, just chop your head off at a moment's notice, and the other looks as though like, hey, she might be fun, but she also might be a vampire. So, oh man, I'll be honest with you, I can't give an answer to either one on that. It's like both might be fun, but both might be deadly. So, uh, yeah, man, I wish I had an answer for you for that one, Bernie, but uh, I don't know. I mean, Aegon obviously saw something that made him want to be with Rhaenys more, but it seemed like Rhaenys might have been out there thotting it up a little bit, though. Seemed like they was throwing dirt on the name. She was just out there gallivanting with whoever. I don't know. We'll have to see. All right. Another one from Lauren says, given all the marriages in Westeros to the Targs, doesn't that make everyone a little bit Targ? What does that mean for the story as a whole? Look, you know what? I've been asking what the hell the rest of the Targaryens were for a long time because I'm like, there's no way, and especially now after going through this book, I'm like, there is no way that that they're that Daenerys and Jon can be like the only two living descendants of Targaryens. I'm like, there's way too many. Um, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure what it means for the story. I don't think it's necessarily supposed to mean anything. I just think it's so other than the whole, having pure blooded Targaryens might not mean as much as people with it, but then again, the way that George talks about how the dragon eggs were hatched, and Daenerys having a special connection, but then you have Brown Ben Plum, not Valyria, Drogon kind of flies onto his shoulder and is a little nice to him. It's I don't know, man. It's hard to know what it means to the story because the Targaryens, other than Daenerys and Jon, have been completely written out, and Varys is obviously some sort of Targaryen. Young Griff might be some sort of Targaryen. So it's hard to know fully what it could mean with there being other people who have Targaryen blood in their lineage, because that just hasn't really been the focus. The focus has really been on the very small group that we have. So I don't know that it really has that much of an impact on the story. But I would love to know who are, like, I'm gonna have to, damn, I have to go back and really try to trace genealogies in this fucking book, man. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. All right, man. Next up from Big E, could young Griff be a descendant of Shara Targaryen when she moved to Lys? Uh, could be, because if I'm not mistaken, the wife of Valyria basically supposed to have the same name as her, I believe. I'm not exactly sure, but see, that could be. See, all right. The only thing I have against that is that I think that George would not introduce something like that this late in the game. And I say that because he's already set up too many clues for him to be a Blackfire descendant. So it would be a little trippy to now introduce another Targaryen into the picture and have Griff be a descendant of that long lost Targaryen from a very, very bygone era. Because remember, we're also talking about that particular Targaryen princess was even before the Blackfire rebellions. So that one might be a bit of a stretch. There might be some sort of allegory that he's going with, but I don't think that he would make young Griff a descendant of Shara Targaryen. I think that might be just a little bit too outside the realm, only because there are so many clues, pointing in one direction, and it could be a misdirection thing, but there aren't going to be enough people who are going to read Fire and Blood. That it will line up for them. Fire and Blood isn't supposed to be one of those things where it's like, if you read the main story, this is a thing that connects it. So there's like, if you don't read Fire and Blood, then there are going to be pieces missing from the main story. And so that's the whole thing. It would leave kind of not. It would kind of leave a plot hole. That I don't think George will want to bring up at this point. But don't get me wrong, I had thought about that, but then like just thinking about it a little bit more, I was like, nah, it might leave a bit of a plot hole to do that, and Fire and Blood is just not going to be the thing that people are going to be. All right, I need to read Fire and Blood in order to understand this thing in A Song of Ice and Fire. That's all. Hopefully, I haven't been too long-winded with these questions. Oh man, I see Alicia Kingston bounced out already. Um, what was this? Aegon? Let's see. Lauren's corner sent Aegon knew what he was doing, planned how he would stop the White Walkers, and okay, I'm not. You know what? I must be missing something. Uh, because I've heard people mention this Aegon White Walker connection, and that somehow he invaded Westeros. to prepare for the White Walkers. Um, Honestly speaking, I'm not sure where people are getting that. Maybe I'm not listening hard enough. Maybe I'm not being as analytical as I should be. Maybe I'm analyzing the wrong things. But I've heard this mentioned a few times, and I personally don't know where it comes from. Like I said, like think about the Aegon's Conquest. Like I said, I've listened to the audio book version of that for the past like 3 days. Just trying to absorb as much as I could to do this, and I don't know. Maybe it's in the reign of Aegon. Maybe it's in Aegon's reign or something like that. But yeah, if anyone has any idea as to where that notion of Aegon, where the notion of Aegon invading Westeros to prepare for the White Walker threat comes from, please let me know, because at this point I'm totally lost. I'll be honest with you. I have absolutely no idea where that comes from, but I keep on seeing that pop up on my Twitter timeline, or I'll see like a suggested video about, huge clue about Aegon with the White Walkers. I just haven't watched any of the videos, but I have, like I said, for the past like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I keep on seeing stuff about that. So, yeah, somebody please. Let's see here. Yeah, all right. So yeah, and Big E is saying here too. It's like Aegon barely went to the north. He only visited Winterfell once in his reign, and he never visited the Wall. If he had a prophetic dream about the White Walkers coming from, he did a pretty shitty job. Yeah. Yeah, man. Cardinal Doomsday saying, "I hoped you could explain the Aegon White Walker connection." Hey, listen. I have no idea where that comes from. I have absolutely no idea. Um. Okay, so John Taylor is saying, I think someone asked George R. R. Martin that question at some press event or something. Okay, well, if it was at the if it was at the Lowe's theater event, I was there, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken on it. I think he expressly stated there that he just kind of invaded it, because he wanted to. It had nothing to do with the White Walkers. My memory could be faulty. That was like a month ago, and I was so excited just to be there that I don't remember everything that was said. So, um, let's see here. Let's see here. Okay, so Lauren saying it's to do with Princess Arya and Valyria being suspicious because of Doom. She came back with worms. It's to do with the of why I talk to Dragon Riders. Um. Okay, but all right. That's kind of a far. That's kind of a far stretch, though. I mean, because again, there's no mention, like, from what I remember of because I've gone through the book like in its entirety one time. I do not remember anything about the White Walkers. The only mention of anything having to do with the North, for the most part, you have uh the King Who Knelt. You have the Hour of the Wolf with Krigan Stark. Uh, Damn, what the hell was it? There's another thing um, where they sent one of the, they sent one of the Starks to like the Iron Islands or something like that. And then like everything else, like they mentioned some stuff with the wall, but there's a lot with the Manderleys. Like they mentioned, I think they mentioned the Manderleys a hell of a lot more than they do the Starks. So, you know, yeah, man. I look. I don't know how that specifically. I don't know how people connected those dots. Where it's like, okay, Target the Valyrians did experiments. That's how we get dragons, and somehow this means that Aegon foresaw the White Walker threat. I I don't know how those things mesh together. I don't get it. Yeah, I really don't get it. Let's see here. Uh, Sorry, I'm just reading through the comments here. All right. Okay. Well, let's see. Ricky Hunt asked, "Did they say why the Mandalese were ran out of their home?" Uh, yeah. It gives like a very brief uh story about that. It's basically, the Mandalese were originally from the Reach. Uh, they were getting a little bit too powerful. Their next door neighbors, I forget exactly which house it was. They basically weren't digging the fact that they were getting rich and decided to invade them. And apparently, the High Towers were okay with this, and so you know the the High Towers kind of sanctioned this other house to go and destroy the Mandalese. The Mandalese fled. They went to the north, and the Starks were like, "All right, cool. We'll let you rock here, and not only that, we'll allow you to establish your own city here, and we won't make you give up the faith of the Seven." Oh, all right. So shout out to Biggie, House Peak, House Peak. So yeah, the House Peak, well, just basically was jealous. We don't like you having all this money and all this power. Uh, for whatever reason, like I said, the High Towers were cool with that. Not only the High Towers, but the Gardeners. The Gardeners were the ones. I don't know why I said the High Towers. It was the Gardeners who sanctioned House Peak to go and destroy the Mandalese. So, yeah. Other than jealousy, I have no idea why. Yeah, but it's kind of weird. Arya Targaryen, did she spend a full? I don't think she spent a full year in Valyria. No, now obviously, I'm gonna get more into this when I do the video on that section of the book, because that's part of the reign of Jaehaerys. And oh boy, like I said, reign of Jaehaerys, I'm probably gonna have to do like 3 videos on Jaehaerys, because that section, and I mind you, I have the physical copy of the book. I have the audio book. I haven't had time to like actually go through line by line in the physical copy, but I want to start doing that soon, and maybe highlight some things and take notes and all that other stuff. But I remember listening through, and I'm just like, oh God, when does it end? And it's like every time you think that the parts of Jaehaerys are gonna maybe skip a few years or something, it's just like, my God, just like it's like a Michael Bay movie. Like, does this ever end? Okay, it's gonna end in 20 more pages, right? With 50 more, 70 more pages. Oh God, how long is the how long is this section on Jaehaerys? So yeah, man. Like I said, I'm gonna get the area Targaryen and try to dig in depth with that when I get to the reign of Jaehaerys. But oh my God, that like I said, Jaehaerys is gonna have to be 3 videos. There is no way I can possibly do Jaehaerys in one video. The stream would be 7 hours long. Oh my God. And the funny thing about it is, um, so George originally, before he wrote Fire and Blood, now mind you, he always knew how, that Jaehaerys had a very long reign because he just wanted to have one Targaryen king with just a crazy long reign, and so he made that Jaehaerys. Uh, but he was like he didn't have a lot of material necessarily, right? So he said when he was working on Fire and Blood, he decided to make up stuff, and he just kept on writing and writing, writing, and yeah, it's one of those things where I think Jaehaerys literally takes a third of the, which I'm just like, oh my God, no, why? Oh God, dear, oh God, why, why? Oh man, but this was just because he was saying he didn't want it to be like, okay, Jaehaerys came to the throne at a young age. Everything was peaceful. He ruled for such a long time, and then it was a wrap for him. So he was like, well, if he was king for, all right, you know what? I gotta look up and see now. How many years was Jaehaerys king? Because let's see here, characters. I mean, messed up, but there really isn't. Okay, here we go. So I gotta start doing math. Kind of messed up. Like I really had to like I actually like math. I'm just not good with doing numbers in my head off the bat. Okay, let's see. Well, first off, what was his reign? His reign was from 48 to 103. So over 50 years. Nearly yeah, it's like about what, 50, yeah, 55 years. Yeah, around 55 years he was the right. So yeah, George basically said that he didn't want it to be a thing where he just wrote like, okay, He was a good king. Everybody loved him. Uh, Reigned for 55 years. The end. So he just made up a bunch of stuff for the 55-year reign of Jaehaerys. All right. Yeah, Lauren. Yeah, I might have to agree with you. Jaehaerys is the gender bent Queen Elizabeth II. Except, I don't think Queen Elizabeth had as many kids uh, as Jaehaerys and Alysanne. And yeah, Cardinal Doomsday, you can stream for 7 hours. You can, if you have the infrastructure, YouTube will allow you to stream indefinitely. Mm-mm. All right. Yeah. And any more questions before I decide to wrap this one up? So we'll be back next week. Like I said, and next week will be Aegon's reign, the reign of Aegon, which still gonna talk about more war, more excitement, and all that. But I am also gonna touch on the fact that realistically, Aegon probably, like, if you think about it, Aegon probably should have bankrupted the realm doing some of the stuff that he did. Uh, and yeah, Aegon, like I said, Aegon was not really a good guy. Aegon really was not a good guy. Boy wonder, the boy wonder. Uh, Jeez, man. See, that's what it is up in Toronto, man. I don't know. Maybe I have to make this stream at 9 o'clock next. Let's see here. So, Lauren asks, "How soothing and frustrating do you find the audio?" I do not find. Okay, look, the audio, the part about the audio book that is frustrating is the fact that the chapters are not labeled. So it's like, okay, it's part one, part two, part three, and then there's like the tracks inside. So like if you're looking for a particular section, you might have to skip through things, and I've had to do that. Like, okay, where is it that I heard that particular thing? But look, I'll be honest with you. As an American, listening to, I don't know, old British men for the most part just have the most soothing voices when they do audiobooks. So you know, shout out to old British narrators, man. Yeah, the next live stream will be next Thursday. It's either gonna be 8 p.m. Eastern or 9 p.m. Eastern. Um, yeah, pretty much that's what it is. Always around that time. Oh, whatever. Hold on, Lauren. You said yours are labeled. Oh man, I bought mine on iTunes, man. iTunes does not have the damn chapters labeled. It just says part one, part two, part three. Let's see here. Jude the Fourth asks, "How is it like living in NYC? I'm British, but live in Minnesota. People here are nice but passive aggressive." Um, yeah. Okay. So basically, NYC is they don't really do passive aggressive. Say it like this: for the most part, passive aggressive only comes from people who are transplants to New York City. Uh, New York City is a big ball of aggression, and you gotta have tough enough skin to navigate it. I mean, look, I love New York. I've tried living outside of New York. It doesn't really work. Yeah, I've tried living outside of New York, and it isn't a good fit for me. I love I love the culture. I love as frustrating as it might be dealing with that kind of aggressive tension. Um I don't know, man. I tried living without it and it just doesn't work. Oh man. Yeah, I just doesn't work for me. Yeah, man. Yeah, Big E, shout out to the Bronx. Yeah, Cardinal, I am a cynic. I am a cynic. I'll tell anyone that, man. But yeah, I've tried living outside of New York and it just hasn't worked for me. All right. So yeah, folks, I'm gonna get out of here for right now. I do thank you. I thank you all who have participated in this chat with me tonight. And I will see you again next week. You know, man, oh man. uh yeah, getting on the damn New York discussions. But yeah, listen, next week, like I said, will be the reign of Aegon the Dragon. I will discuss how most likely he probably damn near brought the Seven Kingdoms to ruin, not just because he had a war, but some of the things that he did during his reign. Um, and we'll discuss other things. I'm trying to take even better notes, and hopefully, I will have this big monstrosity of a computer that I paid all this freaking money for fixed. Right now I had to go back to the old laptop, so sound quality is probably not as good, and I don't have any of my damn sound effects either, man. I'm tight. Anyways, yeah. So next week, Thursday, it's either gonna be 8 p.m. Eastern or 9 p.m. Eastern. You know, make sure to follow me on Twitter, so you'll know when I post next video, right? And subscribe if you or if you're not already subscribed, all that good stuff, right? Um, and as I said before, thank you to everyone who participated tonight. Thank you to all those who will be watching later. Rate, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, and come back for more. That has been my time, and this is Don Willie saying Vale do Harris. I will see you next week. Oh, and have a safe and happy New Year.